The drama in Genoa City was about to explode in ways no one could have predicted. As March unfolded, secrets, betrayals, and dangerous gambits collided, setting the stage for 3 weeks that would leave no resident untouched. Phyllis Summers had never been known for backing down from a fight. Bold, cunning, and fiercely protective of what she considered hers, she believed she could outmaneuver anyone, even Victor Newman. But this time, the stakes were higher than ever. Jack Abbott was being held hostage. Lily Winters and her twins had also been caught in the chaos, and Phyllis knew that if she didn't act quickly, the consequences could spiral beyond her control. Her plan seemed simple enough: offer Victor something he desperately wanted in exchange for the safe return of the captives. She was prepared to give back Chancellor, the powerful company she had seized, if Victor would release Jack, Lily, and the twins. But dealing with Victor Newman was never simple. When Phyllis presented her offer, Victor listened carefully, his expression unreadable. He admired strength and nerve, and Phyllis certainly had both, yet admiration did not mean mercy. Victor made it clear that Lily and the twins were not true hostages in his eyes. Their situation was temporary, collateral in a much bigger chess game. If he chose to release them, it would not be because Phyllis demanded it. It would be because he decided the move benefited him. Jack, however, was a different story. Victor had unfinished business with Jack Abbott. Years of rivalry and resentment fueled his determination. Holding Jack was not merely strategic, it was personal. So when Phyllis pushed for a complete exchange, Victor countered with something outrageous. If she truly wanted Jack back, she would have to give up Newman Enterprises as well. The words hit Phyllis like a physical blow. Newman Enterprises was more than a company. It was power, it was validation. It was the empire she had fought tooth and nail to control. Surrendering it would mean admitting defeat, something Phyllis Summers had never been willing to do. Her hesitation was immediate and visible. And Diane Jenkins Abbott noticed. Diane had been watching the entire situation with growing fury. Jack's safety was her priority, and she had little patience for Phyllis's pride. When Diane realized Phyllis was wavering, calculating her losses instead of acting decisively, she exploded. In a heated confrontation, Diane ripped into Phyllis with blistering honesty. She accused her of valuing power over Jack's life. She questioned her loyalty. She challenged her love. Phyllis fought back, insisting she was trying to find the smartest solution, not just an emotional one. But Diane wasn't interested in strategy. She wanted action. Meanwhile, Nikki Newman made a discovery that shook her to the core. When Nikki learned that Victor was holding Jack hostage, she was stunned. She had tolerated many of Victor's schemes over the years, but this crossed a line. Jack might be Victor's longtime rival, but he was also part of the extended family. Nikki understood the fragile balance in Genoa City, and she knew this move threatened to shatter it completely. Confronting Victor, Nikki did not hold back. She put her husband on full blast, demanding to know how he could justify kidnapping a man over corporate warfare. Victor defended his actions as necessary. He claimed it was about protecting their legacy. But Nikki saw something else: obsession. And she warned Victor that if he didn't release Jack soon, he would risk losing more than a business battle. Elsewhere, Lily Winters was finally reunited with Kane Ashby after her ordeal. The emotional reunion was bittersweet. Lily carried guilt over her cooperation with Victor, a deception that had strained her already fragile relationship with Kane. When she confessed that she had played along with Victor's plan, fearing it was the only way to keep her children safe, Kane listened quietly. In the past, such a revelation might have destroyed them, but seeing Lily standing before him, alive, shaken but safe, shifted Kane's perspective. All that mattered was that she and the twins were unharmed. For a moment, the bitterness of past betrayals faded, replaced by a shared understanding. Family came first. While emotional battles unfolded on land, tension simmered on the open water. On the yacht where Jack was being held, the atmosphere was suffocating. Patty Williams, unpredictable and volatile, hovered like a storm ready to break. Jack knew he couldn't overpower her physically, his only weapon was his mind. He attempted to manipulate Patty, appealing to her emotions, feeding into her long-held obsessions, and pretending to understand her twisted worldview. He hoped that if he could make her lower her guard, he might find an opportunity to escape. For a brief moment, it seemed as though his plan might work. Patty softened, reminiscing about the past, about lost chances and misunderstood love. Jack pressed his advantage, inching closer to freedom. But Patty was far more cunning than she appeared. She sensed the shift in Jack's tone, she noticed the calculation behind his eyes, and instead of falling for his act, she flipped the script. With chilling precision, Patty set a trap. Jack realized too late that he had underestimated her. The upper hand he thought he had gained vanished instantly. Patty's smile turned sharp, triumphant. Back in Genoa City, another threat loomed: Matt Clark. Sharon Newman and Nick Newman had been desperately searching for him. His dangerous behavior had already left scars, and they feared what he might do next. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Sienna Bacall. Sienna provided crucial information that narrowed down Matt's possible location. Her tip pointed toward Las Vegas, a city known for secrets and shadows. Nick immediately prepared to act, but he wasn't alone for long. Adam Newman stepped forward. Though his relationship with Nick had always been complicated, Adam recognized the urgency of the situation. If Matt was truly in Las Vegas, finding him would require more than standard police work. Adam had once lived under the alias Spider, a name that carried weight in certain underground circles. Old contacts long buried might still be useful. Reluctantly, Nick accepted Adam's help. As Adam began reaching out to his former associates, whispers spread. If Matt was hiding in Vegas, it wouldn't be long before someone talked. Days later, Adam returned with crucial news. He had a lead, one that could finally bring them face to face with Matt. The chase was about to escalate. Part 2. As the week of March 16 unfolded, tensions in Genoa City reached a breaking point. Nikki Newman had spent days wrestling with her conscience. She loved Victor, that had never been in doubt, but love did not mean blind loyalty. Jack's continued captivity weighed heavily on her. Each time Victor brushed off her concerns, insisting he had everything under control, Nikki felt the cracks in their marriage widen. Finally, she issued an ultimatum. If Victor did not release Jack immediately, she would end their marriage. Victor had heard similar threats before, but something in Nikki's tone was different this time. There was no theatrics, no emotional manipulation, just quiet resolve. She wasn't bluffing. For Victor, the choice was agonizing. Power had always defined him, control was his currency, but Nikki was his anchor. The standoff between them became as intense as the corporate war itself. Meanwhile, another reckoning approached. Christine Blair Romalotti confirmed that Mariah Copeland's trial would begin by mid-March. The charge was serious: kidnapping Dominic Winters. Though Mariah's actions had been driven by emotional turmoil and psychological strain, the law saw facts, not feelings. As she prepared to face the court, Mariah was terrified. Tessa stood by her side, offering unwavering support, but even love could not erase the uncertainty ahead. In the courtroom, arguments flew. The prosecution painted Mariah as unstable and reckless. They argued that no amount of emotional distress justified taking a child from his family. Christine, however, advocated for compassion. She believed Mariah needed treatment, not punishment. She pushed for a mental health facility rather than prison, emphasizing Mariah's history of trauma. The courtroom drama gripped Genoa City. By the time the week of March 23 arrived, a verdict loomed. Would Mariah be sent to prison, or would the court recognize her fragile mental state and grant her the opportunity to heal in a structured facility? As the judge prepared to announce the decision, the tension was suffocating. At the same time, the Vegas pursuit intensified. Nick and Adam worked together uneasily, tracking Matt's movements through a maze of casinos and backroom deals. Old rivalries between the brothers flared, but necessity kept them aligned. When they finally closed in on Matt's location, they realized he wasn't planning to run. He was planning something far worse. A dangerous confrontation erupted, one that threatened innocent bystanders. The chaos forced Nick and Adam to rely on each other completely. In the end, Matt's reign of terror was brought to a halt, but not without consequences that would ripple through their family. Back on the yacht, the situation with Patty reached its climax. Jack, trapped and outmaneuvered, searched desperately for another chance, but events spiraled beyond the yacht's deck. Sooner rather than later, Patty made her dramatic return to Genoa City, and she didn't come alone. Jack's reappearance sent shockwaves through town. Stacey Haydock's unforgettable portrayal of Patty ensured that her presence was anything but quiet. She thrived on chaos, and Genoa City provided the perfect stage. Old wounds reopened, long-standing rivalries reignited, Diane braced herself for confrontation, Nikki feared what new trouble might erupt. Patty's invasion of Genoa City promised fierce face-offs and emotional fireworks. Whether she sought redemption, revenge, or simply attention, one thing was certain: peace would not come easily. As March drew to a close, Genoa City stood changed. Alliances had shifted, marriages teetered, families were tested. And through it all, the residents learned a harsh truth: in their world, power always came at a price. The battles were far from over. The storm that had been building over Genoa City finally began to break during the week of March 16, but instead of relief, it brought tremors that threatened to split marriages, families, and loyalties straight down the middle. Nikki Newman had reached her limits. For days she had tried to reason with Victor, to appeal to the man she loved rather than the ruthless titan the world feared. She had stood by him through corporate wars, family betrayals, and scandals that would have destroyed lesser couples. But Jack Abbott being held hostage was different. It wasn't just business, it was vengeance disguised as strategy. When Nikki confronted Victor again, there was no softness left in her voice. She stood in the living room of the ranch, shoulders squared, eyes blazing with quiet fury. "You release Jack," she told him, "or you lose me." Victor tried to dismiss her threat at first. He reminded her of the times she had sworn she was done, only to return because their bond was unbreakable. He insisted this was about protecting their legacy, about ensuring that Newman power remained unchallenged. But Nikki did not waver. "This isn't about legacy," she shot back. "This is about your ego." The word hung in the air between them like a crack of thunder. Victor's jaw tightened. No one spoke to him that way, not in the boardroom, not in the press, and certainly not in his own home. Yet Nikki's eyes held no fear, only resolve. For the first time, Victor saw that this was not a temporary rebellion. If he refused, he truly might lose her. While the Newmans' marriage teetered, Mariah Copeland prepared to face her own reckoning. The courthouse felt colder than she expected. The walls were sterile, the air heavy with judgment. Tessa squeezed her hand as they walked inside, whispering that no matter what happened, they would get through it together. But Mariah's heart pounded with dread. Kidnapping Dominic Winters had not been a calculated crime. It had been the desperate act of a woman unraveling under the weight of unresolved trauma and postpartum emotional collapse. She had convinced herself she was protecting the baby, that she was acting out of love, but the law did not measure love, it measured actions. Christine Blair Romalotti stood ready to argue for mercy. She had made it clear weeks ago that she believed Mariah needed psychological treatment, not a prison sentence. As the proceedings began, Christine addressed the court with controlled intensity. She outlined Mariah's history, the trauma of her childhood, the psychological strain she had endured, the instability that had clouded her judgment. She did not excuse what happened, but she insisted it was not the act of a malicious criminal. The prosecution countered sharply. They argued that regardless of Mariah's mental state, a child had been taken from his parents, fear had been inflicted, trust had been shattered, actions had consequences. Mariah listened as strangers debated her future like it was a theoretical exercise. Her throat tightened as she glanced at Devon and Abby. Pain flickered across their faces, complicated, layered pain. They had once trusted her with Dominic's life. When it was finally her turn to speak, Mariah stood on trembling legs. "I was wrong," she said, her voice cracking. "I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought I was helping, but I hurt people I love. I will regret that for the rest of my life." Tessa's eyes filled with tears. By the time closing arguments ended, the courtroom felt suffocating. The judge announced that a decision would be delivered at the start of the following week. The waiting would be torture. Across the country, in the glittering chaos of Las Vegas, another confrontation was brewing. Nick and Adam had tracked Matt Clark's movements through a network of underground contacts. Adam's old identity as Spider opened doors that would have remained sealed to anyone else. Shadowy figures recognized the name. Information flowed slowly at first, then in steady streams. Matt wasn't just hiding, he was planning something. When Adam relayed the latest intel to Nick, the brothers stood in a quiet corner of a casino floor, neon lights flashing around them. "He's not running," Adam said grimly. "He's setting up leverage." Nick's expression darkened. "Leverage against who?" "Us, Sharon, anyone he can use." The realization sharpened their focus. For all their rivalry, this was not a moment for old grudges. Sharon's safety and possibly others hung in the balance. They tracked Matt to a private event space on the outskirts of the Strip. What they found was worse than they expected. Matt had positioned himself with hostages, innocent people caught in his spiral of desperation. The confrontation was explosive. Nick tried to reason with him first, appealing to whatever sanity Matt had left. Adam circled strategically, calculating angles, watching for an opening. Matt ranted about betrayal, about how Genoa City had chewed him up and discarded him. His paranoia fueled reckless decisions. When the situation escalated, chaos erupted. A struggle broke out. Security alarms blared. In the end, it took both brothers working in complete sync to disarm Matt and prevent tragedy. As authorities closed in, Matt was finally taken into custody. Breathing hard, adrenaline still surging, Nick and Adam exchanged a look not of friendship but of recognition. For once, they had functioned as a team. Back on the water, the yacht drama reached its boiling point. Patty Williams had grown tired of the cat-and-mouse dynamic with Jack. She could sense his desperation, his constant mental calculations. It thrilled her and irritated her in equal measure. "You always think you're the smartest man in the room," she taunted one evening, circling him slowly, "but you underestimate me every time." Jack tried one last time to appeal to her humanity. He spoke of second chances, of redemption, of how returning to Genoa City on her own terms could change her narrative. Patty's eyes flickered with something unreadable. And then she made a decision. Instead of keeping Jack hidden indefinitely, she would return to Genoa City with him. The re-entry was dramatic. News of Jack's return spread like wildfire. Diane rushed to see him, relief washing over her when she confirmed he was alive. But that relief was tempered by the sight of Patty not far behind, smiling cryptically as if she had orchestrated the entire spectacle. Victor, faced with Nikki's ultimatum and mounting pressure from all sides, found himself cornered in a way he despised. Public attention was intensifying, his control over the narrative was slipping. In a calculated move, he allowed Jack's full release, framing it as a strategic de-escalation rather than surrender. Nikki saw through the spin, but she also saw the concession. It was enough for now. Their marriage remained bruised, fragile, but intact. As the week of March 23 began, Genoa City held its breath for Mariah's verdict. In the silent courtroom, the judge finally delivered the decision. Mariah would not be sent to prison. Instead, she was ordered to undergo mandatory treatment at a secure mental health facility. The court recognized the psychological factors that had contributed to her actions, but it made clear that recovery would require structure and accountability. Tears streamed down Mariah's face, a mixture of relief and fear. She would have a chance to heal, but it would not be easy. Tessa embraced her tightly, whispering that this was the beginning of a new chapter. As March drew to a close, Genoa City felt both exhausted and changed. Phyllis was left grappling with the cost of her ambition. Diane remained wary, protective of Jack now more than ever. Kane and Lily cautiously explored the possibility of rebuilding trust. Nick and Adam returned from Vegas with a fragile truce, one forged in crisis. And Patty Williams, she lingered in town, her presence an unpredictable spark waiting to ignite fresh chaos. In Genoa City, peace was never permanent, it was merely the quiet before the next storm. If you enjoy YRspoilers, updates and daily drama, make sure to like, comment and subscribe for more videos.